The Anglo-Saxon world was one of war and blood, so it cannot be a surprise that weapons, and swords in particular, feature prominently in their culture. A slice of Anglo-Saxon culture comes down to us through the epic of Beowulf, and it is in Beowulf we find two named swords, Hrunting and Nægling. Yet the effects of the narrative of these swords are surprising. In this video, we shall look at these two swords and their place in Beowulf. Although I am no expert on the subject, I hope this will, at least, reflect a layman's exploration of it. Beowulf concerns itself with events in the 6th century, but as interpreted through a lens of legend and myth. It may have been composed in East Anglia during the 7th century, although the Anglo-Saxon scholar Professor J.R.R. Tolkien thought it written in the 8th century based on the mode of its paganism. The oldest surviving manuscript has been dated from the 11th century, although with all things Beowulf there is uncertainty. In the story, the great hall of the Danish king Hrothgar is raided by the monstrous Grendel. From southwest Sweden comes the hero of the Geats, Beowulf, who travels to Denmark and, having been received by the Danes, kills Grendel. But his deeds in Denmark are not finished, for he then must kill Grendel's mother, who is understandably furious at the death of her son. With two monsters very firmly destroyed, Beowulf returns home and eventually becomes king of his people. But now, a third monster, a dragon, arises to plague not the Danish kingdom, but the realm of Beowulf, and so he sets out with his thanes to kill it. The dragon is formidable, and Beowulf follows it to its lair, where he kills it at the price of being fatally wounded. We have already seen that swords in legend and fiction are often named. In Beowulf, swords speak and sing. They have moods. Hrunting is loath to bite. It is this Hrunting that Beowulf carries into battle against Grendel's mother. The blade is given to Beowulf by Unferth, the king's orator. Nor was that the meanest of mighty helps, which Hrothgar's orator offered at need. Hrunting they named the silted sword, of old time heirlooms easily first. Iron was its edge, all etched with poison, with battle blood hardened, nor blenched it at fight. In hero's hand, who held it ever, on paths of peril prepared to go, to folkstead of foes. Not first time this, it was destined to do a daring task. It is described as a rare and ancient sword, a hilted weapon with an iron blade. It seems the blade has a design engraved on its surface. As the poem states, it has ill-boding patterns tempered with blood. Like so many legendary swords, Hrunting has never failed its wielder in battle, and the text hints at a long career of heroic feats. Nevertheless, Hrunting fails against Grendel's mother, which is rather inconvenient. For mighty stroke he swung his blade, and the blow withheld not, then sang on her head that seemingly blade its war-song wild. But the warrior found the light of battle was loath to bite, to harm the heart. Its hard edge failed the noble at need. Yet it had known of old strife hand to hand, and had helmets cloven. doomed men's fighting gear. Godfrey Hughes, in his 1977 piece for English Studies, Beowulf, Unferth and Hrunting, An Interpretation, points out that as Unferth failed to defeat Grendel with that very sword previously, his passing it on to Beowulf has symbolism. Then again, Unferth is depicted as treacherous, and his dislike for Beowulf may be the motivation for giving him a sword he knows will fail the hero in his hour of need. Another interpretation, from Kent Gould, in his Beowulf and Folktale Morphology, God as Magical Donor, has Beowulf as the Christian hero and Unferth as the pagan whose pagan weapon cannot vanquish the ungodly monster. It is only when God himself gives Beowulf a sword that the hero enjoys victory. Whatever the real reason, by handing Beowulf his sword, he is handing him the responsibility. Grendel's mother is dispatched, not by Hrunting, but by another sword, a giant sword Beowulf finds in her lair, and Beowulf is victorious. Afterwards, the hero returns to the great hall of the Danish king and returns Hrunting to Unferth. We are introduced to a second sword at line 2191, a blade that could have been her Ethel's sword. Then the bulwark of earls bade bring within hardy chieftain, her Ethel's heirloom garnished with gold, no Geat e'er knew, in shape of a sword a statelier prize, the brand he laid in Beowulf's lap. Is this Naegling? It seems Naegling is given to Beowulf as a gift by the king of the Danes, along with a boar head standard and a battle helm and a breastplate, and it is described as a splendid sword. When Beowulf sets out to fight the dragon, he is armed with Nægling. The sturdy king had drawn his sword, not dull of edge, heirloom old, and each of the two felt fear of his foe, though fierce their mood. But he has as much luck with this sword against the dragon as he did with Hrunting against Grendel's mother. His arm he lifted, lord of the Geats, the grim foe smote with Etheling's heirloom. Its edge was turned, brown blade, on the bone, and bit more feebly than its noble master had need of then in his baleful stress. No victor's glory the Geat's lord boasted, his brand had failed, naked in battle, as never it should, excellent iron. There is some degree of irony, if not outright sarcasm, in calling it excellent iron, given the outcome. Fighting a dragon is too much for Nægling. The bold king again had mind of his glory. With might his glaive was driven into the dragon's head, blow nerved by hate. But Nægling was shivered. Broken in battle was Beowulf's sword, old and grey. 'Twas granted him not that ever the edge of iron at all could keep him at strife. Too strong was his hand, so the tale is told, and he tried too far. With strength of stroke all swords he wielded, though sturdy their steel, they steadied him naught. Nægling fails not because the dragon is too strong, but because its wielder is too strong. But even without his blade, Beowulf is eventually victorious, although at the cost of his own life, and his body is burnt on a great pyre. Beowulf is considered the premier epic of Old English, a founding epic of the English, composed and written at a time when the Anglo-Saxons were slaughtering the Britons, driving the survivors from their ancestral lands, and denigrating them by calling them foreigners in their own country. A word which rendered into Old English has brought us the word Welsh. Beowulf himself is what we would today call Swedish, and his tale is about a Swede and his adventures in Denmark and Sweden. It is significant that both Hrunting and Nægling fail in the fight. Beowulf kills Grendel's mother using a giant sword which his enemy has captured and stored as a trophy. He kills the dragon using his physical strength. Neither Hrunting nor Nægling carry the narrative forward as weapons. Both fail in combat. The question therefore is, why did the poet name them? If Beowulf had been written today, the reader would know the poet wanted to make a point. Hrunting is loath to bite. How important is this? It was given to Beowulf by Unferth, and so this may be the point of Hrunting, rather than as a weapon designed to kill a monster. It seems the heroic model of Beowulf is one of physical strength rather than prowess with a blade. This, in the Anglo-Saxon mind, may be what makes him a hero.